Welcome to iCIMS Fireside Chats. In this series, we tackle the topics that you want to know the most about. And in this episode, we have Ben Eubanks, Chief Researcher for Lighthouse Research and Advisory. He is not only a researcher, but a best-selling author and notable speaker. We're going to get into the research that Lighthouse provided in the August Workforce Report around AI in recruiting. We're going to tackle three big questions. What is the ROI of AI in recruiting? Where in the recruiting funnel are TA orgs using AI? And what are they doing with this extra productivity and time? I learned so much from Ben in this episode, and I know that you will too. So get ready to learn, take lots of notes, and get ready to tackle one of the hottest topics in recruiting right now, which is AI. All right, welcome to the Fireside Chat, and please join me in welcoming our guest, Ben Eubanks with Lighthouse Research and Advisory. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey, Trent. So glad to be here. Looking forward to a fun conversation.
Yeah, well, you and me talking about data is always a fun conversation,
Listen,
right?
For the next 3 hours, we're going to have the most fun. Everybody else out there is going to tune out at some point, but for three and a half hours or so, we're going to just roll with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've got a long history of having a passion for data. And, you know, it was so enlightening, the research that we were able to partner with you on for the August Insights. And that's really when I wanted to spend, you know, the kind of this fireside chat is really digging into what's really going on with AI in TA organizations. So why don't we set it up first by, can you tell us what was your approach to the research? Like, who did you survey? Like, kind of walk us through that so that way we understand kind of what your thought process was.
Yeah. So the big picture is we've done this research on talent acquisition every year for the last 5 or 6 years. I probably should know that off the top of my head. Anyway, for quite some time now. And about 3 years ago, we started asking questions of candidates in addition to employers in the data. So it gives us an interesting counterpoint to a lot of the things we're thinking about. And so this year, the most recent research, we do it in the spring every year. And we surveyed over 1,000 companies, talent acquisition leaders, HR leaders with responsibility over talent, really trying to get at the heart of what's happening, what are the trends, what are you worried about, what are you excited about, and what are the opportunities for us to do this work that you and I both love so much to do it better.
I love that. So we actually pulled out 3 different graphs in this particular report. And so I want to kind of talk through them sequentially and really get you to pull back the curtain a little bit. But the first one was around the perceived time savings in recruiting with AI. And your findings actually show that there's a clear breaking point in the AI adopters or those who are already using AI in their shop versus those that are not. Can you kind of walk us through that?
I think there's a natural pessimism on the outside looking in any case, right? That diet surely can't be that good. That workout plan surely can't be that good. And using AI surely can't be that good until you get in the middle of it and you realize, wow, if I put everything into this, it can benefit in a variety of ways. And so in the data, yes, we saw that a team that is using AI already, they're about twice as likely to say that 5 or more hours a week is how much value they're getting out of this, how much time they're saving because they're using artificial intelligence and other automation intelligent tools to help them support their process. People that are not yet using, they're a lot more likely to say, you know, it may be sort of helpful, sort of good generally, but not a great time saver. And so it may be one of the things that's held them back transparently from doing this. They think that the value is not that good. Or it could just be they're like, well, you know, maybe good for them, not good for us. Again, we can make lots of guesses about the why behind it, but really the thing that I see is that once teams start getting in, start investing, it's not just that first time savings, Trent. It's that, hey, now that we've taken care of this, what else can we do? And it starts to open some interesting opportunities to add even more value than you thought you could originally.
You know, it was pretty fascinating, that breaking point. And looking at the data, it did caused me to ask a question. All right, for those that already have AI in their shop, they actually graded like the less than 1 hour and what was it, the 2 to 3 hours, whatever that next one was. They graded it lower than those who were not using AI, which I thought was pretty fascinating. But it led me to ask the question, all right, for those that already know the power of AI, do they think, look, playing with something, unless you're going to get 2 or more hours of efficiency in it, it's just not worth it? Or can we tell that from the data at all?
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, if I said, Trent, you can go through all this work and you're going to do this new diet plan workout. I don't know where this came from. Okay. By the way. Okay. You're perfectly fit.
I don't know why you're talking to me about a diet and a workout plan.
All right. But if you said, hey, listen, you're going to do all this work for the next 30 days and you're going to probably save about, lose about a pound after weeks of workouts and everything else, diet changes, that's a lot of work. And you're like, I don't know if that's worth it, that marginal single pound. And yes, if my recruiting team is going to save 1 hour a week from doing this, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe all that it really is just hype. And that's the thing that you and I have both been encouraging for quite some time now is this is not the thing where you just stand back and watch and see what happens, because standing still is falling behind. You've got to try something. You've got to be willing to just experiment a little bit. And the good news is generally most recruiters who are doing the work are willing to experiment. They're willing to test because they are in the business of selling a job and they've got to do it well. It's the leaders who sometimes need a little convincing that yes, there is risk. There is potential for bias. Yes, there are potential complications, but at the same time, there are potential opportunities that you're not going to take because someone else is taking them because you're holding your breath and waiting.
And, I will also point out that in the August report on the actual workforce data, we did see a break in the trend line. Now, the openings and the percent of hiring year over year it's been following the same pattern. There's been some distance, but it's been following the same pattern. This is the first month that we have seen hiring continue to go down percentage year over year. It went down to 10%, but the openings crept up 5%. And, I've been kind of calling it the Great Divide. It does. Both of us were recruiters. Instantly my empathy goes out to them going, those poor things are getting more requisitions and they can't get the jobs closed that they already have open because hiring managers or whatever the process is, there's a delay. I do see, AI as being able to really kind of help them manage that top of the funnel while they're trying to close out some things at the bottom, which was pretty fascinating. So you also researched that, kind of asked the question, where in the process does AI or intelligent automation add the most value? And I will say, of the data that you gave to us, this chart made me pause because I was way off. Can you walk everybody through, how did it rank?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we asked about where you can get the most value, for many of you listening in, you're probably thinking, okay, we spend a lot of time doing this, this is a hard process. And so like you, Trent, I think about it naturally in terms of the workflow, right? The earliest sourcing and then screening and those processes we people through. We found from employers is the number one area they said was most valuable is screening and assessing candidates. And Trent, that comes back to another data point in the research this year when we asked companies, what is the biggest problem you're trying to solve right now across the board? It wasn't solving our employer brand. It wasn't making sure that candidate experience is great. It was, how do we pick the best person? How do we get to the right person? Because right now there are so many candidates on the market that companies are like, the good and bad of that is there are more people to pick through. How do we find the right one? Right. And so that's where we see the number one answer was screening or assessing candidates. Right behind that was matching candidates to the right jobs, which has some interesting pieces to it on the candidate side too. Candidates are actually really happy with companies using AI if it's matched into a job that matches their skills.
Really?
Next behind that was sourcing and outreach. So there's a ton of different ways, and then scheduling, right? Again, the sort of table stakes piece there. That one's been solved by a lot of companies. So they're turning their attention to screening and assessing. And for you and me, again, we think about the things that took so much time for us day to day as recruiters and recruiting teams more broadly. It's cutting through all of those submissions coming in to find the right handful we're going to talk to and the right one ultimately make that offer to you.
So yeah, and I can also confirm that from our kind of our growth side, looking at our clients, and also too, we talk to a lot of prospects, that part that you mentioned about the quality of hire, it is starting to really kind of take number one, but it makes sense. If you can only do so many hires and you're really hesitant about what's going on in the market, you want to make sure that whenever you send that offer, that it is to the highest qualified person available to you. So it makes sense logically, but it's just really interesting to kind of hear you say that that's coming top of mind. But I do want to point out kind of an elephant in the room. All right. So the top two is screening and, well, the matching candidates to jobs, I think is okay. But the screening and assessing candidates, I think what really surprised me is that it ranked that high with some of the litigation noise that we have going on in the market, right?
There's litigation? What are you talking about?
I know, crazy. Yeah, people putting in AI without having any kind of a governance strategy doesn't make any sense to me. But like, how, I don't know. Like that data just it's you know me. It's rare that I'm speechless. That really had me speechless. Do you have any ideas about that?
I'm just enjoying this moment. We're speechless for just a second. For all us out there, let's just enjoy this 1 second because it may never happen again. Oh
It
God,
won't.
you
It
know I
won't.
love you, Trent.
I
So,
love you too.
oh goodness. So with all of that noise about litigation, bias, risk, why is screening and assessing candidates number one? Because ultimately that's the biggest problem. Now, there are some really interesting use cases that I've seen over the last 7-8 years. I've been researching AI applications here, and the earliest conversations around bias and risk and the concerns there. And I know those were real, and I know those that still continue. But at the same time, I see other opportunities where AI helps to level the playing field, helps to create less bias in the process. Everything from the earliest tools, which were like, hey, listen, you can create a job posting so it doesn't drive all the women away that want to apply for your jobs with the words you're using in the gendered language. Those things have become sort of table stakes in some of the tools now. People have adopted that as a feature. But what's next? Well, let's make sure that when we're looking at resumes, maybe we have a feature to blind them so that we're not looking at, hey, this person was the women's chess club champion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know probably what gender that person is. I can't rate them lower because of that. Or we pull the name off so I don't accidentally, the old research that says someone named Jamal needs 8 more years of experience to be considered equal with someone named Jeremy. That's what the old research shows around this. So even something as simple as a name unconsciously creates bias. And so the AI tools don't just help us to match the right person to the job, help us figure out who's the right one, but help to take some of the other things out. Because guess what, Trent, you and I could probably name them right here on the spot, and we won't do that. But we've had managers that we've reported to and worked with on hiring, and for some reason, they always found a reason not to hire that person, right? I will never hire a Black woman for my team, or I'll never hire this person on my team because, well, they just don't feel like they're a fit. And I can't audit that manager's brain to figure out what's going on, but I can audit the AI and say, hey, listen, it's looking at this thing, and we can pull that factor out because it can't use that factor to decide who's the right person to hire. And so that's what I would go back to is this isn't just about the matching, assessing, like those components. Those do matter. But it's also about how do we make sure that this is done in a way that's equitable across the board so that everyone gets a fair shake and gets a chance at that job that they all really want.
I like that. So kind of your stance is that AI can actually help with bias, not just encourage it. And again, you need to have that responsible approach to AI and ethics and have it in your framework before you start putting all this AI stuff in. All right. So we have determined perception, how many hours AI can actually save recruiters. We just talked about where do they see it in the value chain, kind of lining it up against our funnel. So the last question was one that I was thankful to see is now that you have all this extra time, maybe this extra capacity, even if it is just 5 hours a week, what are you doing with that? And so you asked the recruiters, where are they spending their time? Do you want to tell the audience what number one was? It was so satisfying.
Yeah, they were putting their feet up on the desk, leaning back, and
that's what the hiring managers probably think that
that's
they're
what
doing.
Everybody thinks they're doing. Yes. When someone's like, "Oh, you got an extra 2 hours a week? Like my car's really dirty out there in the parking lot. You want to go take care of that?" Oh goodness. So the number one answer there when recruiters saying we're freeing up time, we lead them down a path. We're using AI. Okay, is it saving you time? Okay, if it's saving you time, what are you doing with that time? We ask them that logical set of questions, so we're getting right to those people who are freeing that up. And the number one answer is we're spending more time interacting with key candidates in person and virtually. The second answer there, again, candidate focus, great. Second answer, we're spending more time on metrics, measurement, business impact, really proving to the business the value of what we're bringing. You've mentioned quality of hire, Trent, earlier. Like that gets to, are we bringing the right people? Not just more people, not just people on time, but are they the right people to impact this in a positive way? And on down that list, right? More time on training, more time, internal hiring, more time on communications. Those things show out there. But the thing that excites me is when I free up more time and I've got a killer candidate in the pipeline, I really want to spend time with them, but goodness, I've got 78 recs I'm trying to juggle. I can't spend more than 30 seconds on the phone with that person. If I'm saving some of that time, I can invest it back into that relationship because it's going to make a big difference for us here as an organization if I can get them committed to come work here. Whereas before it's like peanut butter spread approach. They all get the same thing.
Yes.
Now I can spend more time with those key people, both in person when we're here and virtually, to try to get them committed to the organization. And that excites me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and two, as a, former practitioner, we just talked about quality of hire. There are things that only a human can assess about a candidate.
Yes.
Why not give them more time to do that? And to me, the thing that really stood out is, okay, wait, it took us putting in AI, a machine, to get more human in the loop of the process for recruiting. It was very cathartic. And then two, to see that they're actually going and they're looking at their metrics and going, all right, how do we increase that quality of hire? How do we increase our processes? What do we look at on candidate experience in terms of the metrics, and actually being very strategic, which, again, I love that that's where they're spending their time in those top two areas.
Well, it's like
Just fantastic.
Well, I was gonna say, you have been in executive meetings yourself, and they're talking about hiring not as a, hey, do we fill this one job down here that, is just kind of lost in the weeds, but we're trying to accomplish this thing. Do we have the right skills? Can we tap into those skills? Do we have those in our database? Like, they're asking big questions, and to be able to answer those big questions because you have the time to answer and understand and be aware, versus just, oh gosh, I'll have to get back to you on that. I've just, came here on two wheels from an interview. Being able to say, you know what, yeah, we actually do have those things you're looking for, and we're going to be able to staff that key project that you're planning that's going to drive this business for the next 10 years, that big priority. We have the talent to make that happen. That's a different conversation than, oh, we had 40 people apply this morning, or like other little things just get lost in the weeds, essentially. One other thing I'll give you there on the candidate side, because this is fun to me to see the other counterpoint. We asked candidates in the research, I believe this was last year in the study, but we asked them, that connection with that recruiter, does that persist past day one? And what we found was, for the majority of candidates, that person they connect with, that recruited and brought them into the organization, that relationship persists for a week, for months, some of them up to a year or longer, because that person was a trusted connection, their first entry point into the organization. And so in a world, again, more AI, more automation, that is where my mind goes, is how do we emphasize that human piece? How do we reinforce that part? Because that's what stands out. When everybody else can do the same things with an AI, outreach, how does that human cut through the noise and create a relationship that lasts over time?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there are, I was on LinkedIn not too long ago, and how they do I just recently got promoted, but this person that got promoted, I hired them in as an associate to like a commercial lender, and, seeing all this time that now they're actually leading an entire market. I think for the recruiters who are like really passionate about what they do, they love that human connection. Like, I actually shot him a note. I said, I am so ecstatic. I remember our phone call, so it's like being able to take a little bit of joy in seeing that you were able to help get that person, right? And the fact that AI is going to hopefully, when leveraged correctly with the right ethics and governance put in place, that it's going to allow the recruiters, the really good ones, to do even more of that. Think about the impact that's going to have on our economy, on our livelihoods, on our mental well-being. Sometimes putting the person in the right job, I always tell people, it is a generational decision that you are affecting. Don't take it lightly.
Have you heard my story on that before?
I have, but go ahead and tell it.
I'll share a very quick story on this one, because it's so powerful to me. One of the last people I had the honor of recruiting when I was a recruiter day to day, in that last position I helped bring a person onto the organization that he told me in our conversations, again, discussions, not just a quick flyby, because I needed to find the right person. In our discussions, he said, listen, nobody else in my family has ever really amounted to anything. I went to college. I went to the Air Force. I went to officer training school. Like, I have done something in my life, and I want my kids to see that and to follow that, because anybody else in the family is not a good example for them to follow. And so we're talking about this opportunity I had, and ultimately he said yes, because I talked to him about it in that language he used. I said, listen, Luis, you can either do what you're doing now, which is great, wonderful, you're setting a good example. I said, if you come and take this role, you'll be the first person in the history of the world to do this specific job. This doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And you will be able to set the standard for what everyone else follows by doing this. You'll be a pioneer in that area, just like you've done it in your own personal life. You can just do that here in your professional life. And he's doing that job today. All these years later, he's still doing that same exact job over at the Royal Air Force Base Building Hall over in the UK. He's still doing that job because of that connection to his sense of duty to his kids and to his family and to his community.
And I do miss parts of recruiting, and it's those types of things, those connections, being a part of someone's story, even if it's only for hopefully 30 days, getting them into, but right now, the way the time to fill's going, average is about 41 days, but hey, one can hope that you can get it done. All right. I love a great mic drop moment. So considering the 3 different pieces that we went over today, what's a mic drop moment, piece of advice, just tie it up in a nice little bow that I know you can do?
Oh, goodness. I think the biggest thing is, let's go back to that first question. We talked about the time savings. For those of you out there who are looking at the time savings and thinking, hey, that'd be great, we can get more accomplished, we can get more done, I want to tell you that if you wait until you realize that savings, you won't get the benefit from it. You'll save some time, but you will not be able to use that time effectively. What I find is that the majority of the teams that struggle with that, if they wait, the ones that win say, Trent, if I got one more hour, I would go do this right now. They know and pre-plan what that is, just like you plan your budget for your household. Before the month begins, I know what money's coming in, I know where it's going to be spent, and I know if we're going to have any left over or not. We need to do the same thing with our time when it comes to this. Because if I told you you'd save 1 hour, what's the most valuable marginal thing you could do that you can't do now with that 1 hour? If you save 2 hours, what's the next most valuable thing? And so on down the list. Because as you start to add these things in, you will save more and more time. But if you're not using it for that purpose, you're not saying, hey, I'm going to be meeting with this executive to build a key relationship because I can't now. I'm talking to these key candidates and building on that. Those opportunities give you a chance to really add that strategic value everybody talks about, but no one really knows what it is. You can be the first one to really do that well in your organization if you follow that path and pre-plan. Don't just show up expecting that automation to add the real value.
Very true. Very true. So your mic drop is don't wait when. That needs to be a t-shirt.
You know what? I wore my summer school t-shirt with moving from reactive to proactive in case that came up in conversation today. It didn't really, but I'm like, I always wear a shirt that can be relevant to the conversation potentially if I need to be. So
I love it. Always branded. Well, Ben, as always, you packed a lot of a punch into 20 minutes, and we really enjoy partnering with you on this research. So someone, of course, probably fell in love with you through this. Where can they connect and where can they get some of your research?
The easiest place to get the research is at our website. You can go to lhra.io/access to get to the research library. You can join in there. It costs nothing. And you can see any of the studies, including the one we've referenced today and others around talent, learning, HR, and more. Really dive into what's happening, what's trending. And the same way I've talked today is the way that that's written. It's not very academic. It's meant to be practical and useful, just like Trent and I can use it every single day as recruiters and now sharing on the industry. So that's my best piece of advice.
Awesome. And then they can also find you on LinkedIn. You're pretty active on LinkedIn as well.
I have heard of LinkedIn, yes, as well. So yeah, you can find me there on LinkedIn, Ben Eubanks. Reach out, connect, follow, all that good stuff. You can see this research there as I share it, all the latest and greatest.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you again for the time. Thank you for the insights. And I'm sure this is not the last time I'll have you on one of our Fireside Chats.
Awesome. So great.